Let's talk to Connor Campbell. He's a financial analyst at Spreadex. Good morning,
Good morning,
Connor. Right, let's talk about the Great British Pound, cable against the US dollar, key events. Run me through it.
Yeah, we've got inflation on Tuesday, you've got the UK jobs report on Wednesday, then you've got the Fed on Wednesday, you've got the UK retail sales on Thursday, and the Bank of England on Thursday.
So if you're a trader, this is a pretty exciting week.
Yeah, no, after being left at the mercy of US political sentiment last week, this week is sort of a feast of macroeconomic news for investors to sort of get their chops around, really. In terms of what are going to be the key movers, it seems like the Fed on Wednesday is the pick of the lot. In a week that, in any other week, any of those figures would be the highlight. But if you had to pick one, it's the Fed. You saw on Monday the market is pulling back. That seemed to be in fear of a rate rise on Wednesday, but more importantly, I think expectations of a rate rise on Wednesday are like 99 point whatever percent. That seems pretty locked on. However, I think the uncertainty is, well, does the Fed line up three hikes this year, inclusive of the one on Wednesday, or 4? And that, I think, is going to be where the second half of the week's trading hinges on, really. Obviously, in terms of if it seems to signal 4, then the Dow Jones could pull back a bit. Obviously, very good news for the dollar. That could sort of, the dollar's been on a bit of a losing run in the last, I guess in March, really, against the pound. That could give it reason to cause the pound to pull back a bit if the dollar is looking at 4 hikes this year. Alternatively, obviously, if it's 3, I think it becomes a bit more complicated. Obviously, that would be a disappointment for any hawkish traders out there, but if it's paired with a rate hike on Wednesday, then it becomes a bit murky in terms of how exactly to trade that. Then obviously you've got the Bank of England on Thursday. They're very unlikely to do anything on Thursday. However, again, investors are going to be looking for signals as to how, if and when there will be a rate hike in the UK this year. In terms of the data, I think UK retail sales are expected to jump from 0.1% to 0.4%. UK wage growth is expected to nudge up from 2.5% to 2.6%, which is the first time, I think that'll be the first time in 3 or 4 months that's actually increased, which is obviously good news. So I think data-wise, things are looking fairly good for the pound. However, that could be wiped away, the moment Jerome Powell, if he signals 4 hikes on Wednesday, nothing else is really going to matter. So I think that's why, in terms of what our clients are doing, they've been selling the pound since it crossed that 1.4, 1.405 mark. They've been selling it around those levels. It hit those levels mid-February and then pulled back again.
Yeah.
I think our clients are looking, just because of that Fed meeting on Wednesday, they're looking for it to perhaps pull back in the second half of the week.
Okay, so sellers for choice above the sort of 140 area. Okay, let's move on to the Dow Jones. Obviously a pretty weak session yesterday. The VIX ticking up. Key events this week?
Again, it's all about the Fed. It's all about the Fed on Wednesday.
Interest rates.
Yeah, it's the key thing for the Dow Jones. With cable, it's complicated by there being a lot of UK news. For the Dow Jones, it's all hinging on what happens on Wednesday. You've already seen the kind of losses it could post if they do signal 4 hikes this year. On Monday, it fell 260 points or something by the end of the session. Obviously, contributing to that was sort of a tech slump. Obviously, the Facebook isn't part of the Dow Jones, but it caused enough of a ripple of concern throughout the rest of the sector that perhaps they have got too big for their boots, and perhaps some kind of regulation, or at the very least, hand slap is on the horizon. I think that contributed to the Dow Jones' losses on Monday. But obviously, Monday was fairly light on news. I think perhaps the news cycle will turn away from that as the rest of the week goes on to more sort of macroeconomic issues like the Fed on Wednesday, and I think that is going to be the key driver. In terms of what our clients are doing, they're actually buying around, as it sort of headed towards 24,650, they were buying around those levels, which is interesting, paired with the fact that they're selling cable around that 1.40 level. I think it's very hard to call this week, just because there is so much going on, and the reaction on Wednesday is going to hinge on potentially the slightest change in wording, the slightest shift in tone. It's going to be one of those things that to the layman's eye is barely perceptible, but to those investors really looking for some kind of hawkish or dovish signal, it could cause a fairly big movement. But like I said, investors sort of buying around the 24,650 mark.
On that note, Connor, thank you very much indeed.